All right, let's look at let's start off with radio buttons. So we're going to go back to our input control and we're going to come down and I'm going to pick radio. Okay, so type equals radio. We need to give it a name and we need to give it an ID. So I'm going to give it a name of inches and an ID of inches. And let's give it a value. We need to give it a value. We'll give it a value of IN, which is abbreviation for inches. And I'm also going to pick, since this is my first one, I am going to add checked. Okay, so by default, this radio button will be checked. If we don't put this and we put 3 or 4 radio buttons, none of them will be checked. Okay. And then I want to do something else because this is just a radio button. So let's take a look at what this looks like. There it is, radio button, and it's already checked, but it doesn't have anything next to it. Now we could just type some text, but there's a better way to do this rather than just typing text next to these things. And we can actually use something called a label. And if I click label, and it says label for, and we will stick in a match for its ID. So if this is going to be my label for this radio button, when it says label for equals, needs to match the ID of the item that it goes with. So I will stick 4 inches, and then I can give it some words. In this case, I'll use inches again because save it. Let's preview it. So this checkbox is for this checkbox, or excuse me, this radio button is that the person wants to select inches. I am going to copy this. I'm going to make 2 other radio buttons quick, except I'm going to change this inches to feet, D to feet. I don't want more than 1 radio button to be checked, so I'm going to get rid of checked on both of these. Value feet, and then for this one we'll do yards. Borrowing this from an assignment we did in C# a while back, right? If we were trying to recreate that in HTML. And then I need to change the labels as well. This was our label for feet. We'll use the word feet. I'm typing enough here that maybe I should have just done them from scratch. It might have been just as fast. For this one will be yards. Okay, so label for, and we specify something that will match its ID so that it knows where to put the label. I'm going to change that to yard YD. All right, let's preview it. Inches, feet, and yards. Depending on your form, you may not want those going across. We might want to put breaks in between. Put a break there and a break here. And just for the fun of it, what if label 4 does not match? Let's see what happens. Open it in our default browser. It still figured it out. It put it in there with that last one, so we're okay there. But generally, they should match. I'm sure we could confuse it somehow if we wanted to. So there's how we do radio buttons, and let's move on. And I want to do checkboxes now. So let me do an input. And there's checkbox. The name for this one, let's do Fahrenheit. we'll just Fahrenheit, ID equals Fahrenheit. Do we want to do, we can give it a value. Let's do another one. We can do a label for that. Label for FHR is how I spelled it. I never remember how to spell Fahrenheit. Is it GT or is it just T? We'll do that. That looks right to me. It's probably wrong. I don't know. So let's see what our checkbox looks like. And default browser. There it is. I didn't put it in its own section, so it's appearing right next to yards, but obviously I could. I can check it. Notice my radio buttons don't uncheck themselves like they do in C#. So that's something you have to deal with with programming. And we'll talk about that at another time. All right, I want to add one more thing. Let's go up to our radio buttons. This is the beginning of them. And I am going to surround them with a field set. I'll put field set there, and it moved it in here. Let's go ahead and just take all this stuff and drag it in the middle there. Oops. And I want that indented a level. And can we format document? Oh, look at that. And it did my indents for me. I right clicked, picked format document. You can also do shift alt F and it formats it. So all my labels that I surrounded with that field set now got indented. That was kind of nice. I can save this. Let's go preview it. And now I have a box surrounding these, and ideally if I had more than one checkbox I would make it its own field set. Radio buttons don't really behave differently like we might expect in C#, but we will accomplish that again. We'll talk about that later when it becomes relevant to us. All right, so there are a ton of different things we can add when we're talking about forms. I mean, if you just type input here, you can see all the different things. There's inputs for picking colors. There's inputs for doing date and time fields, email fields. There's password fields, range fields, all kinds of them. And I obviously in these videos, I can't go through every single one and show you what they all do. But as you need them, you can look them up. They all basically stick around input, give it a type, and then there's some different things you can set for those that at this point we don't really know how to use yet, but we will at some point in either JavaScript or if we do web applications. You'll learn how to actually use all these options that are getting set. So go through and check some of those out. If you're not sure how one works, just go look it up. But the nice part is, I mean, you should be able to hover over some of these and have them get explained to you. You can look them up and help. You can go on the web and just do a HTML input type with the thing that you're thinking about using, and it will give you all the information you need. So that's where we're going to end these. It's not a complete coverage of every single type of inputs and labels and controls and all the different things, but it should give you enough that you can do the assignment for this week, and in the future, if you need to know how to do something, you will know how to look it up in the basic structure of how it works.